Now, maybe we're streaming right now, I don't know. And I'll just give me a sec. I want to do the hello thing because I'm just so together. Hi, it's Saturday morning and it's Art of Rock. We're talking about blaster beams, and we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, but right now we're talking about blaster beams. This is made possible by Angelspit's Patreon, and my God, thank you humans so much. And my chat isn't working. No, my chat is working. Go join Angelspit's Patreon because it keeps the madness going, and I thank you all for being part of it. And it's damn fantasticness. And I will also just really quickly pimp MTV TV because they're bloody awesome. Follow that channel, and if you got a video, send it to MTV TV because they want your babies. Is my audio even on? It is. Now, John, we were talking about we're talking about blaster beams. Welcome to halfway through a conversation with blaster beams. John was telling us about lock nuts, and now keep talking human.
Hey there. So I built a blaster beam based on instructions that Carl very kindly shared on his Patreon.
How much did it cost?
How much did it cost? I need to put it together, but like this particular build was like, I would say like 250 around there.
Wow.
But part of the reason, pricing difference between the one that you had done, honestly, like pickups. Like right now, I have like dirt cheap, Amazon, like who the heck knows what manufacturer they are pickups, that ran like, $10-15 off Amazon.
Right. So you got the beam. How much was the piece of metal itself?
Let me bring that up.
Don't worry about it. Too hard. Too boring. Don't worry. Just make up a number some other time. But keep talking about what you were talking because I'm side railing you.
All right. There's so I got it from Core Metals, and let's see. That cut list was $144.
Wow. So I will just say, go ahead.
Yeah. So that is for the T6. Aluminum Association channel, these four cutoffs.
So you got everything for under $150.
Yeah, under $150.
Dude, that's amazing. I think mine was $170. Good.
So, the aluminum itself isn't that expensive. It's like the shipping is a thing, and it comes in a gigantic tube.
Yeah, I mean, sample that tube. So how much was your ship? Was your shipping included in that 150?
Yeah, it's included with that.
Wow, that was good.
Yeah, the aluminum was 103. The shipping is 41.
Wow.
So, but it's like a giant cardboard tube with wood on either end and like long staples all the way around.
Yeah.
The way that I got those things out was, a pair of like needle nose pliers and a hammer. I took like the rubber off the back of the needle nose pliers, hammered it in to pull each one of those out. It sucked, but I got it out, without destroying anything.
Very quickly, what I know is, can this conversation get any more industrial? We're talking about tools and building something out of a big piece of aluminum. Go on, John.
No, this is like maker ethos. This is like if you have an idea, expand on it, rinse, repeat, like everything is a remix, and your version is a remix of existing versions. My version is a remix of existing versions, and we will continue to share this knowledge and tell people like how to do things and experiment, and out of the interest of building and sharing and saving other people time, like learn from my mistakes, learn for the things that I would do differently. Like I learned from the stuff that you did. I'm going to share like the stuff that I had done that I wish I had known going into it. And this is just like how we build upon it. Yeah.
This is amazing, and I thank you. A few things. One, I want to turn mine also into, and I took off the big one. One of my big strings. I took off the double wound. I've only got the single wound on there. It's a lot cleaner now. Mm-hmm. Because having two of them meant that the bass was not totally in tune, and that just got really messy, especially at 20 cycles. Mm-hmm. I want to turn mine also into some kind of reverb machine. because aluminium is shingy as shingy McShing. Plus the strings are McShingville. So what I really need to get is a stereo little feed thing that you do with the spring reverb. Basically, this is the sexiest spring reverb on earth.
Do you just use an electromagnet for that, or can you use any old pickup and just reverse, or is that going to burn it out? Like, do you need more energy?
I don't know.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I need a go, John.
So the contact mics pick up a lot of, a lot of like kind of like noise, but like this thing, like especially the way that I have it oriented right now. So like we've got like studio monitors like right there next to the speakers, and like as I have it up, like and especially with like running it through like a guitar rig and like distortion, and it's like there's enough amplitude, like these
just airwaves,
it'll feed back on itself like very happily.
Well, that's
and just keep going.
I haven't actually mic'd mine up yet. Because when I did all the Nosferatu stuff and used contact mics, you couldn't do it because they're crappy and they're poo. One thing I'm gonna just so firstly you need an inducer magnet, an inducer speaker, and you can get them really cheap. And I could turn this into a spring reverb for $50, maybe even less, and a stereo one as well. And I really, really want to do that. And therefore I'm going to be picking up the tone not only through the contact mics, but also through the pickups. 2, I need to talk to Rob. Rob, if you're listening, we need your brain. And I'm so glad that you survived the hurricane okay. And my love to everybody in Florida. I hope you guys are going all right. Because there's a hack you can do to really cheap contact mics that can make them sound better. Because contact mics, like the ones that you get for like $1 each, they sound like rubbish. Yeah. They sound like rubbish. They've got nothing under 200. Some of them nothing under 500. So that's why they're feeding back, because they've got this high shing at 1K. And 1K wants to feed back because they're also speakers and they're horrible. But there's a hack you can do, and you can buy these contact mics for like $100, and they sound really good, and they're Mesa Piezo transducer mics. But what I want to know is what's the hack you do to them that makes them not sound like rubbish. Actually, I should talk to Suit about that, because I was thinking, like, if I was going to buy spend more money on my beam, I would get decent, like, real contact mics, like the real ones, the flat ones, just because the ones that you mic up a grand piano with, because reasons and stuff. Wow, listen to my voice. Does it ever stop? Does my voice ever stop? Blah 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 blah. Quick, someone say something amazing. Oh my God, Mark.
Hey, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. I changed the microphones around. So I might not understand all the physics of blaster beams, but is it feasible to make a shorter blaster beam? Because I don't know if I want 6 feet of aluminum.
Yes, you can. They're not going to be as high though. They're common to see them 4. In fact, there's a blaster beam group on Facebook, and it's called Beam Users. So there's the blaster beam and the beam. They're the same thing, but they're different. Technically, these are beams. They're not blaster beams. I just call them blaster beams because it sounds cool. Blaster beams are 20 feet long. 12 to 20 feet long. And what John and myself did is we put piano gauge, 24 gauge and 12 gauge piano wire on these, so we can achieve greater depth for shorter the distance. So what a lot of the 4-foot ones do, they will go down to a D that resonates around about 36 cycles, is they use the big fat piano wires. But the bugger about the big fat piano wires is they don't, you can't bow them. And there's like, I don't know, oh, you probably can't hear that, but there's
I can hear it.
there's other fun things you can do. But if yours is only 4 feet, you'll get to about a B, a low B. Yeah, so that's like, and that's if you're using piano wire. That's the 24 gauge wire. And yeah. Yeah, John, you probably want to say something right now.
Yeah, so based on the instructions, so I got both the 12 and the 24 gauge wire, and I didn't like the 24. It was, and I actually just, this is all strung with 12. Yeah.
What?
Keeping them, that's all 12. You know, this is all the thicker gauge wire. It's all tuned to the same E, and I can use it simultaneously.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I had because of the different gauges, when I was pressing on it, like, they wouldn't stay in tune with each other.
Okay. This is interesting. What tuner are you using?
Both built-in, one built into Ableton, and I've got a cheaper off-the-shelf one. Let me find it.
Okay. That's really interesting that you say that, because
It's a wrap. Why do you ask?
I highly recommend getting a Peterson Strobo Stomp. These are horrendously accurate, and these only require part of a cycle, and they are built and designed for everything from straight out of a pickup. You can take them off contact mic, and you can plug them into a modular synth as well. They go up to 10 volts, like 10 volt signal input. So you can have a blaring modular synth, and they are so amazingly in tune. Let me demonstrate by showing you how out of tune my blaster beam is at this moment in time. Don't judge me. And they have cool colors as well. I'm now going to go into that one there. Hold on. Come on. D sharp. Good one, Carl. You're really in tune today. But I can also, and then I'll tell you, see how it's going down. That means it's flat. And the thing about tuning a friggin' blaster beam is when you hit a string, all of the other strings start vibrating. So you have to mute them. And it also picks up... Hold on. This is so exciting. This makes for good television. It doesn't. I'm lying to you. Fuck. Where the fuck did that come from? Damn it. Did it come from there? Did I do that? Yes, I did do that. I found out the ultimate trick for miking up this fucking thing as well. So this is the bass speaker. See, there we go. D sharp 0. That means Carl's out of tune today. D sharp 1. Wow, I am so. But this thing's really good. And it's so terrifyingly accurate. Like, it's down to point. You can pull up a thing in it where it will show you the frequencies of it. And they're about $150. But it's Dustin put me onto this, and he said that this is the one that metal guitarists use because they're so in tune. And that's the thing about what this comes down to is, firstly, the strings. I had to kind of dig the 24 gauge deeper into the bridge, so everything sat roughly at the same height. And then I had to build up the 12 gauges a little bit. But I like... that's just really interesting you say that, because I found the reason that they were out of tune an octave up, they were like way out of tune, was because they were not dead on. And you can get it dead on, and it'll stay dead on for a while. You know, if you're not... but if you're going like that, you don't really care about tune all that much. If it's dead on, the pitch stays everywhere. Yay, more things to buy. Sorry. But
Yeah.
I highly recommend, even if you just put one 24 gauge, you know, picking up your bass sectors. And I have all my bass furthest away from me. Although I have the little ones in the middle, the 12 gauges in the middle, which makes no sense. But because of the pickups, it makes sense. English is such a fickle language.
No, it's like I went for the lowest one, you know, the lower ones all the way across the board. But I can try mixing the 12 and the 24. But yeah, it's like I had done that. I also have like extra eyelets, which I can, you know, and basically use it to just like, you know, swap it out, just wrap it around the eyelet, and then like I can just, you know, bring them on and
Yeah.
off. I haven't. You asked if I was had experimented with fifth tuning, not yet, but like the full assembly happened this week.
Rock
You know,
and roll.
like, I mean, I had it up and basically got everything like loosely fitted, took it all apart, finished like did the finish work, like used a brass brush across the entire thing to like get off like all my like markers, you know, and just like clean it up, washed it down with soap and water, let it dry, and then gave it a couple coats, and then of a clear coat, let it dry, and then put it all back together again. So this week, that's actually one of the reasons why I'm here today, is like I wanted it like, so like it's done.
And it looks so sexy. And it sounds great too.
Right. Also,
You got a bow.
look on Amazon for student bows.
Student bows. How much was that bow?
This was like $20.
Wow.
So $20 plus rosin, which yes, you want rosin. It's a requirement. You have to get rosin.
I got the rosin.
There we go.
Bloody dude said he was going to give me a bow, and he didn't. Because I bought a student bow, and it's like... I bought it many years ago. It lasted many years. In fact, it probably lasted more years than most fucking, excuse my French, things do. Anyway, good on ya. This is so very exciting.
So, question about playing. So we're talking about like, you know, the art and joy of putting this thing together. It is great for pedaling.
Oh, yeah.
How do you creatively get yourself off of like that, you know, because like it sounds wonderful, like just open E, like boom, like
Yeah.
you know, and you can experiment with a tone around that, but like how, you know, it's like getting it to the point that it, you know, it is a pitched instrument, like it, you know, it can be, but like how are you effectively tuning it? Like, because I mean,
I'm listening.
but yeah, it's like basically like, how do you push yourself to this, you know, to a place where you can treat it like a, you know, stringed instrument where you're not always just doing open E's?
Okay. But firstly, I think I told you about the t-shirt under the gaff tape. So the purpose of this is it's like jang mute. Jang mute. I'm also off topic. I'm in the process. I'm trying to get a remote like hi-hat pedal that has got a thing that clamps down on the strings to mute them. I don't know why I said that. What I have to do is I've got the frets. Every minor third is a big fret, and every semitone is a smaller fret. And I've got them marked on there with a Sharpie. I also have always... Okay, so the stomp box, it's dead silent. So I can go through this into a distortion pedal. And what I'll do is I'll take it out of the bass pickup. And while I'm playing, I'm watching it to make sure that what I'm playing is in tune. Because you know, and it depends on how in tune you want to be. But yeah, that's the thing. And there's a real trick with getting the right amount of pressure to actually mute the string, but not change their pitch too much. And another really fun thing as well is you can get I don't have one on me, is you can get a second thing. And so this one might be holding down a G bass. Boom, you're holding it on the G. And then you've got another one that's playing a melody over the top of it. You know? So you strum it, and then this guy's playing a melody. So, and you know, you might do that on, you know, when I do that sort of stuff, I'll do it on the high strings, on the 12 gauge strings. So it's also muting stuff. So it's kind of producing two notes, which is really fun. But yeah, the moral of the story is, answering the question quickly, I see your hand, Rizzy, is I have to have everything marked on the bridge, or the neck, so I know where the notes are. Rizzy. And
one of the things also is the mass of a typical pedal steel tone bar is really heavy. They're solid, unlike a guitar slide. But either way, there's that balance of the mass of the tone bar and the pressure that you're applying and how that affects the pitch and whether you're getting a good sustained note. But there's some, like, you know, learning curve in there or getting a feel for it. But then also, I mean, I definitely use fret markers when playing slide, but the main thing is ear and simple intervals. You know, like if you've got a drone going, you slide around and you land on your pitch a lot more easily than if you're just, you know, doing something. This is the first track you're laying down. But there's a lot of just listening and playing in there, and heavy mass on your tone bar and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna open the lid on my Tascam Spring Reverb and pour in a bucket of ball bearings so I can jam with you guys. I'll shake it around.
That sounds sex. Oh baby, there she is.
So this is, you can see these fret marks. I found a piano and guitar calculator, which I used to mark those. And yeah, so I mean, these are the individual fret markers. I have, you know, did a double for, you know, 12 up, you know, for the octave. You know, so I mean, I do know where it is on the stage. And I misspoke, by the way. I'm sorry, these are 24 gauge, not 12 gauge.
Right.
I
Put the 12 gauge on there. Do it. Yeah.
Just.
Oh, where?
So open source is time. I'll do it.
Where? Put on the 12 gauge, John, or you will go to your room.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just spank me. That's all I need. All right.
Yeah. What was the question? Oh, God, that is such a sexy beam. It's so brushed.
It's a tool.
And smooth.
Yes.
Mine's all scratchy and looks like an orc.
Yours is raw and real, and my 5-year-old wants lunch.
Okay. Well, that takes priority over everything. That's 12:30. That's fair enough. But yeah, that's what I think. And Rezi, thank you very much for your wisdom. It's all about this strange thing called rock. We are welcome to yeah. Okay, Turles, go. Yeah.
So, this is something that you will want to make if you're going to do something like this. I found a YouTube video where basically it was like I was looking like how do you wrap thicker gauge wire and do it, you know, tightly and concisely. And so this is just like a little block of wood, honestly, scrap piece of wood, put in a screw and a notch. This notch I put in using just a regular wood saw, and just go straight across, and this allows you to basically wrap around the wire in a very tight way. Because I was trying to do it like by hand, and it was messy as heck, and it was like this isn't sustainable, especially like because there's not a lot of clearance with this. No. And another advantage, by the way, of taking everything apart is as you take it apart, it gives you an opportunity to trim all like the excess wire. It's like, because as soon as they start touching each other, you're going to introduce vibrations, and the pressure will adjust the pitch in ways that you don't expect. So you want them isolated as possible.
Yeah. Good intel. Really good intel. Also, I'm just going to fling back to something you may said, Mark, about another thing some people do is they will get a piece of spring, like a piece of spring, not even as big, and you can get these at Ace Hardware that are like 3 feet long, 2 feet long, and they suspend them over a piece of metal or a piece of aluminium or a few of them, and that will give you the blaster beam sound, like the Craig Huxley blaster beam sound, like the Boba Fett setting off a sonic detonator to shoo Obi-Wan Kenobi away as he's over the moon of planet Galatheria. It sounds like what planet is that? Sounds like sounds like the lake Geneva, Genevos, I can't remember, but when he's over that planet and Boba Fett sets off those bang sonic, that's a fucking blaster beam straight up. And that sound is not exactly achievable on these, like raw, but if you set up some springs, you will get that sound. You can get some other beautiful sounds over these things though.
I saw some clips of the 4K remaster of Star Trek First Movie and thought of you.
What a movie. It's really interesting that I think that in some ways I'm really glad that I went with the path of this instrument, because there's musically so much more you can do. There's some things you can't do, but you can fake those things. And if you also like a lot of that zhangy stuff, that's in your contact mics. But yeah, blah 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 blah. So I'm done with talking now and forever. We could keep talking about blaster beams, or we could talk about something else. I have things I'd like to talk about. Should I just start? John, do you want to keep talking about blaster beams? Or Rezi's got his hands up.
Yeah, go to Rezi.
Rezi, what you got?
I have a conversation killer if you're willing.
Okay.
This may have a quick answer, it may not, but do you have a good headset mic for stage work for sopranos with really high SPL handling, for the two loud notes in their aria or whatever? Well, I guess it's not an aria if it's loud. Since you work in the
opera
field. Yeah.
Okay. So when we mic up,
mine's blowing out the mic on just the sound pressure levels at the capsule. So that's
okay. When we mic up a soprano, we actually it's kind of like a lav, but not really. Yeah. And it's there. And I'm right on the cheekbone, and we have to give them. Thank you. We have to give them like so much headroom. And when I'm doing their sound checks, what I'll say to them is, I want you to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Because that's one of the loudest tones they'll create. So when they're hitting that high note, if you're like 6 dB off the mark, you're fine. And then you've got to be really careful of compression. Like,
I'm doing a ton of gain control on the channel, on the output stages and stuff.
Or is it recorded?
Yeah, it's for live. It's if it was recorded. But the thing is, Carl, I'm getting, and this may be an old capsule that's worn out or damaged, but I am getting actual
distortion in it.
Distortion from her pressure at the capsule.
You can go back into the little thing that it connects to, the pack. And you can pad.
I've got the gain down. I've got the preamp that the receiver end of it that's down.
So is it a headset or is it stuck to her face?
It is on a boom arm. It's a mini, like, tiny capsule on a boom arm. But
you're gonna have to bring it back.
Yeah, she's got it pretty far away. So these are all the things. We're on the same page, definitely. And it's like I said, it's 4 notes for her whole performance that hit it that hard. But so you haven't actually run into with your singer example, somebody who's blowing out the capsule and
No.
not the electronic sound stream. Okay.
No.
Then maybe I am missing something, and it is, there's
yeah.
a gain stage that has more headroom and it just
Yeah.
doesn't have metering.
And the other thing is, I'm flying faders the whole show.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Talking
now they're
quietly,
talking,
singing
now they're down, and
loud.
now they're singing loud.
Same.
And yeah, and often I'll put all the singers into a bus and compress that bus.
Yep.
So I can do all this fader stuff, but compression is happening on the bus and not there. It's only happening on the channel when it's like, okay, we've got a problem. And that might be like minus 12 dB at 2:1.
Sure.
Or something not too drastic. Yeah, I don't know. I would be watching your gain on the thing. It might be the mic. Try a different mic. We did a gig once where they had headsets, and I hated them.
So you're like cosmetic taped onto the skin and stuff, so makeup handles it, or do you have to tape it on?
Actually, what we'll do is I always tape them on, and I have to like alcohol wipe the makeup off.
Yeah.
I don't mind it going to makeup. They've got little covers on them, so I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
A bit of powder in there because it's not going to get into the gadget. Although I prefer doing it afterwards. But yeah, that's I've done the headset thing before, and they were a whole bunch of pain in the ass because they got caught in hair and they got costumes.
Well, I'll look down the chain. I'll drop if the gain isn't already down on the transmitter pack all the way, which I suspect it is. I'm going to go down on that and then compensate for it on the input gain of the mixer.
Do you have a second mic?
That's the thing. I've promised her that we'll look into it, and maybe Parsons Audio will send over a couple of different things for her that we can work with. Try out on the high notes.
Cool.
Coincidentally, I also have a baritone tenor that gets quieter during the performance, and he ends up down here at the end of the show. So pushing the faders up during his whole entire time. I'm end up with like an extra 4 dB on the fader by the end of his thing. So
it's the show I'm working on at the moment because I'm doing the camera stuff, and my camera operator nearly fell off the stage. No, he didn't. He was nowhere near it, but he was right on the edge, and he was like holding a steady cam. So if he fell, he would have fell back forward. But it's like where he is, there's a few places where the hot stage mics are, and it's like and we are right at the front where the two, the bass and the baritone are having their moment, and it's like I can't say anything, because if I spoke while those guys are singing, you're not really going to hear it because they're so loud, but the mics are right there. It's like, I don't know.
Keep the backstage chatter off the. Keep the production channels out of the house.
What do you do? But anyway, fun and games. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it's a good discussion. I'm gonna at least give another check to the gain staging on the pack. So
cool. I don't often talk about gear. I do. That's a lie. So Hexinverter, one of my favorite brands, are calling it a day, just because of ability to get a hold of gear and components. So they're getting rid of a lot of their stuff, and I went, fuck it. There's a piece of their gear called Hot Glue that I've wanted for a really long time, and what Hot Glue does is it's 4 inputs, and you can send them to distortion and compression, and it's all analog, and it's absolutely wicked on drums. It is holy bags of wow, and it's got a really good side compression on it too, like really good. So you can put all sorts of fun things through it, and I started putting vocals through it because I've been researching a lot on Skinny Puppy and how they did their thing and yada yada yada. And I went, okay, it's analog distortion and analog compression, and this thing, I don't think when Stacey made it, I don't think he was going, oh yeah, this will be for voice. My God, it's so good on voice. Like, because I'm always looking for that vocal, and it's great. It's great. And you just twist it, you know. And that's the thing I love about distortion is like, you know, when you're going into it, you can gain it there and it'll get more kind of like crackly, and you gain it at the end, da-da-da-da-da, and then you can gain it in the distortion stage as well. But the compressor also distorts, and it's great. It's really, really good. Ivan, I love, what's the lights behind you are fantastic.
You have Beetlejuice?
Look at that.
It is!
Look at that.
Oh, one of the guys from Moleco Heavy Industries is working on what he's calling Nivik Ogre in a box. It's a stomp box that does all of the things.
Wow.
I remember him talking about it like a year ago, and you know, thanks to supply chains, we may see it someday. Someday.
What is that? What did you say that brand was?
Moleco Heavy Industries.
Moleco Heavy. Yeah. Oh my God. I had one of his filters. They were awesome. He had the Vostok copy. Beautiful filter.
If you like to play bass and you don't have one of these, you were doing the wrong thing.
So what? That's a distortion thing.
Yeah, it's a circuit remake of a like early '70s like overdrive and distortion bass pedal. It was based on actually the one that Paul Barker was touring with back in the early '90s.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Bass distortion. There's a conversation.
This thing sounds amazing.
Okay.
Moleco guys definitely know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're great. I had one of my I had this thing for years, and it was going, I don't know what's wrong with it. And he just sent me this new IC. You just stick that in there. It was good.
Boom, fixed.
It's great. Yeah. Bloody excellent. Well, that's good to know. Bass distortion's an interesting one because it's like holding onto the clarity of the sound as well is really hard. Because, you know, look, on this thing, it's like 20 cycles, 40 cycles, 80 cycles. But trying to wind it back, because I'm using a Boss, the yellow OD13 or something, the bass. Razzy's shaking his head, and now he's nodding his head. But
I love that one. I was just scratching my beard. There was no
okay.
negative.
Yeah, I love it too. It's really bad. I fucking love the Boss stuff. Sounds so good. And I figured out, John, I'll tell you the secret. I'll tell you a secret, my child. Just winding, getting the bass right on distortion when you've got a whole bunch of bass frequencies going on is really hard. I guess it's about being dry. I wanted to talk about forget it. My trick with making epic blaster beam faux guitars. Remind me, John, I'm going to tell you that in a second. It's my secret. Razzie, go.
This is a really dumb one. Does anybody have a software emulation of the Boss Feedbacker pedal?
John went to Google.
It sounds a little bit like the OD one, but it's, I think, orange. And if you hold it down, you can get like a sustained synthesized note of the note that you're playing, wow. Which is great if you're wearing cans all the time and you can't actually make real feedback in the room. You might as well. It just dawned on me that should be a VST version, if it's not. Otherwise, I've stopped trying to buy it now, John, if that's what you're doing. If you're just searching, then okay. But
distortion, man.
You have to buy one on Reverb.
I don't have a direct answer for that one.
And throw it out to Vince. Vince, I miss your face. I read you in the chats before. Like, you know, this is Vince's territory. So can I tell you all? Oh, do we want to keep talking about this? This is so relaxed today. It's great. Can I tell y'alls about the secret to Blaster Beam epic guitar sound? Yeah. Okay. So there's a thing called reamping. And reamping is when you record straight out of the guitar, edit it, and then run it through distortion pedals, etc. So it's a lot easier to edit raw guitar flip, flip, flip sounds than distorted sounds, because you can see the wave files a lot easier on your computer. So the thing about Blaster Beam is because it's so sustaining, it's a wall of sound. So what I'm doing is I'm recording the... I'll take 3 outputs, fuck them up, and then I'll take 2 of them, like I'll take 1 humbucker and 1 soapbox, and they will go straight out. So they're not going to be edited or run through distortion. Because I am the worst player in the world, which I'm learning is a strength, I will then have basically a distorted soapbox. Then I'll get the other soapbox, and this is the panning. And I will go through this guy, and I will really meticulously time correct it. Like every single note, if I'm going chunk, 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 this guy's going to fall on the 8s, while this one's going to be slightly off the 8s. Then once I finish the... and I'll do that with 2 pickups, with a humbucker and a soapbox. Once I finish reamping them, I'll run them through distortion pedals, and bring them back in. So I've got this sound that's like part on, part off, and it's the sound. And another thing I'm doing is I'm putting gate. I'm putting gate on one of them, and I'm putting that over the bass Blaster Beam pickup, because the bass is just the whole song. It's really important how you've got to have space, like outer space. You've got to have space. Space is what you've got to have, because space lets everything else peek through, lets it breathe. And Blaster Beams don't like space, they like noise. I like noise. I'll shut up now. I wanted to talk about bangin choruses. Resi.
I guess before we totally abandon the distortion topic and bang some choruses, there's 2 parts of this chain that I've been using lately. I've spent about a couple of years on just the Ableton built-in amps, and that's plugged directly into a high impedance input on my guitar, high impedance input right into Ableton. A little bit of gain control, split it into 3, pick 3 amps, 3 different speaker cabs, blend those up, maybe put a tiny room simulation over each of the cab simulators, as you're saying, space being the critical component there. But I was pretty happy with the tone. But you can imagine the complexity of juggling all of those individual, the Ableton doesn't pop out windows of their native plugin, so you've got to tap through them. It's a little bit of a pain. So I switched, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, to using this old tube preamp that I have, PV Rockmaster, on the cleanish channel, not forming any distortion, but using that as the front end. That goes into the, it doesn't matter about the impedance on your interface, into Aurora DSP Rhino. And, well, it's a pretty absolutely fantastic solution. It's got a modeling, it's got a tone stage, and it's got a IR loader for your cabs and stuff. So if you're looking for what ends up sounding like an amp in a room with that space on it, this is a pretty good chain. I haven't put too many synths through it or any other acoustic sources, but bass, vocals, and guitar have been the main things that I'm doing. And as a guitar chain for a toneful, playable, nuanced, it's got the touch when you're playing low notes together, they combine with the right harmonics and stuff. It's been a sick rig. And then my tubes went on the preamp because the thing's older than most of us. So it's in the shop. But once I get it back, I'll have some more to say about that outboard tube stage on the front end has been sick, and Aurora DSP Rhino as an amp stage.
I need to learn about tubes, or tubes.
12 AX7s, man, they're the sound of freaking rock and roll. them on the front end, and also the Rockmaster has kind of a British, like a Marshall, Marshall style EQ on one channel, and more of a modern, like Soldano on one of the other channels. So you've got some options.
I don't know what a Soldano is.
More of a shredder kind of sound, like
right.
late 80s, early 90s shredder, thinner. And the Marshall being a little bit less distorted and chunkier typically, but the tone stages make a difference for what you're doing when you turn the mid-range down. Anyway, it's a lifelong learning thing. Some people just, get their tone set and leave their knobs at that, and then either put tape on them or China mark them so that they never get moved. But there is a lot to mess with. And I don't know that it can't be done in software, but this particular preamp with 4 12AX7 vacuum tubes in it warms up and changes and gets hot and changes, and it sounds different as you mess with it, and the interaction of the dials is different than what I typically get on the simulations. And I touch on that a lot, like the unpredictability of what your actual physical knobs do sometimes when there's grit and dirt in there, or an analog interaction is kind of life. It's been fun. I can't wait to get it back from the shop. I don't know what I did to it. It wasn't the tubes.
Yeah, Distortion, man. It's a world. And, just figuring out also compression and all that stuff. It's really interesting because I don't write with that stuff. It's like comes later. But what I'm trying to do increasingly is starting the process earlier and go, what will this inspire? What will I, da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's, or as Mark says, butter. Let's go back a step and, let distortion and chaos influence the music. Man, yeah. Because sometimes, when you get that drum kit and it sounds fantastic and you distort it sounds like a mess. But if you just have a kick and a snare just going, it's like, that is a pretty thing. And the great thing about, when you distort them both together is that it takes the kick harmonics and the snare harmonics, and that gets distorted. It's not distorted kick and distorted snare. It's this thing. And it becomes the most lovely thing. And then you can start putting seriously sub things in there. You can EQ it out, it doesn't matter, but those sub things are going to affect the harmonics of everything else later on. Noise, baby, noise. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Hello. I don't care. Go away. Okay. I want to talk about... does anybody else want to talk about distortion? My God. All we could do is talk about distortion. It would be a good life. Bangin chorus. I'm trying to work on the bangin chorus. And I'm having a lot of trouble with it. It's really hard because I think the secret to a really good chorus is don't think about it too much. And don't say too much. Not too many words. Because people at the chorus, they just want to have their fists in the air and say, fuck yeah. So, I don't know. If anybody wants to advise me on how to make choruses more bangin', what are your tricks for doing a chorus? Go. Razzie, go.
Contrast. If you are going to modulate keys, you do it there. If you are going to make things louder, you're going to do it there. If you are going to distill and simplify so that it's the chant, you do it there. And I know you've got these skills. I'm just saying it for talking because these are things you do. But it's sometimes you have to select 3 of these elements from the bag of tricks, and that's your moment to elevate the thing. And man, as DAW solo songwriter, artist, recorders, there's so much of that chain to keep in mind. And as you're doing your lyrics, you've got until the end of the mastering stage to change them, but you probably want to commit to your intensity, and maybe your highest note occurs during that section, or if you're singing near the root of the song, you go up and you're hovering around the 5th for the chorus. but the lyrics also have the intense words there, and you know, you're going to push your faders up a little bit so that if you had any headroom from your verses, your chorus now is just pushing up against the edge, and maybe it's distorting more for the effect of loudness. But man, I mean, go back to that original thing and talk about the lyrics all the way through to the mastering, or you know, you can improvise on a different path and come up with, well, this is where the lyrics get much more complex and have more syllables, and your intensity is in the pace at which you're delivering the thoughts. But the weird thing is, you know, as an older dude sensitive to what I hear going on now, banger choruses aren't exactly de rigueur.
De rigueur?
They're not exactly timely.
All
They're
right.
not exactly, and I try to make an elevated chorus in everything
So
I do, as well as a middle
means
eight.
timely.
Yes.
Say the word again. Say the word again.
Anyhow.
De rigueur. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah, no, you've got it. That's correct.
What language is that?
I mean, it's an adopted French term,
De
I guess.
rigueur.
But yeah.
Fucking French. De rigueur.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. I'm here all week. Comedy act. Boom. A lot of things just have a hook. A lot of music that I'm hearing, and this goes with goth, you know, stuff, and it goes the modern alternative, and it certainly goes with pop and whatever's sort of kind of combining between hyperpop and progressive metal. Even like a lot of these things are very linear forms where there will be hooks at periodically, and there'll be, you know, audio signatures that come out periodically, but they've sublimated and taken away the entire like height of intensity of our brilliant banger chorus that like our dance floor killers and, you know, rock anthems and stuff have sort of brought into what seemed like tradition, and you're like, how else are we going to do this? We'll always do things get intense, or maybe there's a little modulation at the end where you just shift up a half step, and that's how we create intensity. But it's a different approach that I'm actually hearing in some of the things that have like a really focused, simple 3-note hook that's a lick that repeats, and it's almost like a refrain. But man, I could totally, you know, go back and rethink that process of decisions to make your chorus stand out. And I still do it. But I think maybe the next few things that I write, I'm going to practice not doing it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm working on this song at the moment. I released it on the Patreon a while ago, and I've just gone back to it and went, you know, I hate this chorus. Like, I hate it. And at the time I thought, yeah, it's cool, but now I think it's not cool. I really don't like it. And I'll always, you know, think about, I don't know, man. It's just like, for me, a chorus is like, okay, this is everybody's opportunity to scream something together. So it's got to be easy. And it's got to be bam, 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 you know? Because, like, I like doing that. You know, and I heard somebody once say, I think it was me, I can't remember, that a good chorus will sit on a t-shirt. Because that's what you put on your t-shirt. And yeah, it is, you know, from a marketing perspective, but also there's not too many words on a t-shirt. You just got to keep it really, really minimal. And I was thinking about, you know, I was like, I'm on such a skinny puppy bender right now. And I've been listening to a lot of their choruses, and some of their choruses are like, here's a rock and roll chorus. Here is not a rock and roll chorus. Like, I don't think Too Dark Park has any choruses in it. Maybe it does. But they're
Too
not.
Dark Park didn't need them.
What?
Too Dark Park didn't need them.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
No, but the next album,
Process.
you know, like Killing Game,
Yeah.
you know, beautiful.
Yeah. But it's just really interesting about what works, and it's my problem, as somebody who fucks around with music usually badly, is that my head goes up my ass real fast. And I'm going, and I was listening back to this chorus and it's like, you're a wanker. What the fuck is this? And then I'm building all of these complex chords and it's like, dude, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. No, I suck at writing choruses.
Yeah, because you think too much.
Up front, yeah, that's probably it. Edward Casebell.
Who's that?
You know, like Pink Dots.
Oh, right.
They know he two things. One, he is a freaking genius when it comes to writing lyrics, and their choruses are always awesome as a result. And I think that's mostly because he's a genius at writing lyrics.
Are there lots of words or are there few words?
There are a few words.
I'm big on a few words.
He's really good at using words that are going to, in a sequence that will result in everybody in the room having a different meaning.
Yeah, that's the knack.
Yeah, it was him who came up a long time ago with the phrase World Wide Web.
Didn't know that.
World. Yeah, and just listen to You and Me and Rainbows. I mean, yeah.
Ties back to Skinny Puppy too with the Tear Garden.
Yeah.
Or roads go back to Skinny Puppy. Everything.
I think I heard it in a podcast, in an interview with like a voice actor, but he was like, when you start to get really self-conscious and about how stupid it sounds, that's when you're getting the gold.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's really interesting because it's the concept of like your verses should be very intellectually engaging and da-da-da-da-da, but your choruses have to be dumbified, like really dumbed down. Like, here it is, I am explaining it to you as if you are a drunk. And I think that that's something I'm always trying to do is like I'm looking at this song going, what's the moral of this story? And how can I put this moral, like you said, Ivan, and like you pointed to, Mez, is like, how can I present a set of words in such a way where it's going to have a double meaning, you know? And it's really funny, man. Someone's leaving. Oh my God! Goodbye. Who left? Mez left. Okay. You know, I've angsted over lyrics. I've angsted over lyrics, and then I'll go back to those lyrics. I have a memory of a track. I won't say which track it was, but I remember being in New York at a train station, and I missed my train like 5 times because I was angsting over this chorus, and I couldn't get on the train until I finished this fucking chorus. And I wrote it, and I went, why did you angst over that? Like, you know, I mean, like, it's extremely important, don't get me wrong, but it's like, I don't know. I just wish I could turn my brain off. Right.
I mean, that's the job, though. I mean,
yes.
There's years and days and minutes where you come up with a couple of phrases that are the ones that you are proud of for a lifetime, and it only happens in a minute, but it takes those decades long to distill them, to get to them, to experience and live through that and have them for posterity and for your own satisfaction. So, I mean, yeah, it sucks to agonize, and it sucks to edit, and it sucks to write 15 pages to get the 2 words that really fit together, but it doesn't suck. Again, at the same time, it is the job description, and they're hopefully finding the pleasure and beauty in that is another moment of the process for you too. I don't think that you're saying you're really looking for a shortcut out of it. I hope.
No.
But just some
hours on this thing.
Yeah, but there's some backup that it it's the way a lot of people work, and there's exceptions to everything. But we're all, I'm here with you anyway. I mean, I've got pages and pages, and the same kind of 3 days later questioning why it took so long to get to this point. But man, editing and distilling and coming to the pithy and energetic and memorable, chantable especially.
Yeah,
it's a tough process at the best of times. Well, it can be a very easy process in the moment, but if you zoom out, those are moments in a year of work, a month of work. It's effort and skill.
I have been discovering over this, particularly the last two, pandemic, that this is a journey, and be zen about this, be just in the moment, in the journey. Don't the destination is going to happen one way or another, whichever one, whatever destination it is.
Crash into a wall, but
maybe, but the journey getting there, that make that fun, and we got to get out of our heads once in a while a little bit. And I still suck at writing choruses, and that's musically. I don't write the lyrics. I got a guy for that.
I suck at writing choruses is actually a really good chorus. I suck at writing choruses. That's actually a really good chorus.
I suck at writing chorus.
Yeah, it's got that distilled intensity. It gets right to the point.
It really does.
Understandable.
Well done, Ivan. But yeah, it's...
We're all weak.
Yeah. I forgot. Yeah, it's just... I don't know. It's... Oh man, I'm writing on fucking this thing. I like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to sleep, and it's like, no, that word sucks. I'm going to a rhyming dictionary, and then it sends me off to some other way, and it's like, no, man. It's like, I always go back to I'm fucking beautiful people, man. What a chorus! But when you listen to the chorus, it's really dumb. Except the hook. And then I was listening to Skinny Puppy's protest, and it's just hit me in the face. With much gusto. And it's like, it's really interesting that I never really sat down and listened to that lyric going, but what's he really saying? I was just going, fuck yeah. Rez, talk to me.
Yeah, that's such a good lesson, and you sort of hit on what I was trying to get at with the ramp up the intensity of the delivery, and the phrasing is broken up in such a way, not even his melody, although he does have a contour to it, but it doesn't, the lyrics simplify, the intensity increases, and you've got that balance, that there's something... I love that. I'm going to actually go listen to or watch the cool video.
Love that video.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Never gets old.
Yeah, I'm really into that as an example. But the simplifying the lyrics beyond, as Mez was saying, and now it's dumb. Oh, okay. As long as we've got another feature that rises to prominence over, now your lyrics are not the Steely Dan dissertation, but your intensity is up, and your supporting instruments have come to join in too. Man, there's something there.
There is. I want to have a Steely Dan jar. Every time somebody mentions Steely Dan, fucking Fleetwood Mac, we have to put money in the jar.
Even if it's joking derision, or...
Dude, it was a relevant point. It was extremely relevant. John, goodbye, I love you. I just lost John. No, it's totally relevant. No, but it's really, it's excellent that we can come here and talk about Skinny Puppy, and the next band we talk about is Steely Dan. That's good. That is showing a really strong... We're not just talking about industrial and goth music. We're talking about music. And I think that's so important that, I find it hard talking to people about, I said fucking Fleetwood Mac. My God, their choruses. Wow. Such good songs. And this is the other thing, is that I spend so much time on Distortion and kafuckery that I just think, like, at the core of this song, where is the beauty or the anger of this soul, of the soul of this piece of music? And that's such a, and it can be angry, but at the core of it, it has a soul, and the soul is defined by the chords, the melody, the intent behind it, and that's why I'm fucking ripping my head out. Excuse me, my hair out right now, is because this song that I'm working on, it was all built on samplers and stuff, so it's all not extremely musically defined, which all the new stuff is, and it's a great experiment. It's really good fun. But the difficulty is trying to find the soul of that thing. Now that I have the verse there, and I love the verses, what is the chorus saying? And it's angry as fuck. And then I put all of these, and I'm listening back to it going, I probably have to redo the blaster beam, because the blaster beam is not saying, fuck you. It's just like emotionally intense, but I don't know. Rez, go. And Julius, welcome.
Hey, Julius. I think you're describing something that's probably universal for even people that show up with their instrument, sit down and play the part that they wrote and then go home. But again, I just like drawing an underscore for the length of the process and the intensity and variety of mindsets you need to adopt for the process of inception to release of a song. When you're the writer of lyrics, you're the writer of the melody, you're the writer of the fake drummer, you're the fake guitarist if there is one, or maybe the real guitarist, and then the mixing and production and editing and producing, like, no, that's not right, let's go back and rethink this, here's a different take on it. It's a psychosis inducing kind of thing, potentially, or not to make light of what some of us actually experience and draw on. There could be a mental state that you have advantages of with this, but it's a lot. Let's just say it's a lot. And if you're prone to getting lost in your own head, there's no way out. So I do understand that. And if you can grab little moments to get out, I'll shut up in a second. If you can grab these little moments to get out of yourself and take these breaks and get perspective and step back enough to appreciate the work in itself, like Ivan was saying, the process, and getting a little bit meta contextual about it and putting yourself into perspective with the listeners that are going to hear it and the writers that you're influenced by, and just, I'm in the stream. There may be something there to...
Totally agree. Thank you. Ivan.
During pandemic, I got pretty well thoroughly cut off, from band practice, like with the band, like the guys, and like found myself writing, just writing because I had to keep going. But like I had no input. Like you couldn't just like, how does this sound? Because it involved like uploads and getting them to actually sit down for a minute and do that and blah blah blah. Whereas like when we're in the practice space, like, how does this sound? And they're there, they have no choice but to listen because it's loud. And yeah, you don't, in that sort of situation, you don't know when you're stuck in your head because your brain's lying to you about it. And you don't know when that's happening. And it's been really great getting back to actual practices again, because now you kind of have that push and pull of other people's like thoughts and opinions, and it turns out they're kind of valuable. Yeah. Also, they're not doing absolutely everything, because like, I mean, like if it's in Ableton right now and it's us, it's me. So like I really need feedback continuously.
Yeah, I totally. But it's what's hard as well. Like, if you're just the sole person in the project, it's hard because your brain goes into this very messy phase lock loop, where not only can you not write lyrics, music, or anything, but you lose the ability to tell if it's any good.
Yeah.
You can't, like, self-criticism is really good and really important to a point. it comes down to the concept of, we talked about the 20-minute rule, and maybe that's the sort of thing that has to happen. Go for a fucking walk. I used to have this thing pre-pandemic where I would never write lyrics in the house. I would go to a cafe and write lyrics because I was absorbing the energy, and I would be thinking, if I was on a stage or if I got up and announced these lyrics, would people go, yeah? Or would they laugh at me? Of course they'd laugh at me. Hold on a minute. I think that's the sheriff's helicopter. Sometimes it goes over and it's just this low frequency thump, and it's fantastic. It's like, how can I sample that? But yeah, no, that's what's real. Sorry about that. That was random. This is what's hard. It's really hard, and that's why we have this group, and that's why we have the Discord. And I should be seeing everybody's left. No one's watching anymore. They all gave up. They all left. But yeah, you have to get out. You have to, like, we were talking about this thing with, like, the neurological pathways last week, is if you want your brain to think differently, you have to do something differently. So go somewhere else, go to a park, hang upside down, sit on the floor, use a piece of paper, do anything differently. Razzie, go. And if you can reference what's his name? Jerry
Rafferty.
Jerry Rafferty. I'm very impressed you got that. Bonus points for you. Because that motherfucker is a hell of a songwriter.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a week that goes by that I don't have that sax ripping hook in my
And what a mix between, like, electronics and rock and roll. It's just porn.
That's one of those, oh my god, the Moog line in that thing is so badass and subtle songs that's on the list of 70s. Mm-hmm.
Everything we're talking about, Rezzie's song is called
Baker Street.
Baker Street. We're talking about Baker Street, which is, when I was at university, we after long arguments, we agreed that was the greatest rock song ever written.
I listened to it, and I mean, frequently. I mean, it still comes up on shuffle or whatever. But there's these little interlude synth parts between, interleaved with the vocal that are just like, sublime. That is a way to play synth. And Depeche Mode would be proud.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating that when that song comes on, because I've had that song my whole life. When that song comes on, I think I was conceived to that song. Who wasn't?
Something. Yeah, there's something to it.
Yeah. It just says conceived to me.
Yeah.
I just stop.
Yeah.
And I have to go, I need to listen to this song. It is so incredible. Lyrics, the whole lot. Everything matches the tone of his voice. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a sad song too. It's like a downtrodden story and loss and loneliness and ripping and a non-vocal chorus too. Like there's another topical lesson there where the big part is without words. Yeah, it's a massive hook.
Oh, I never thought about
One
that.
thing I just wanted to add before it totally flees my mind. That is kind of an example of what you got me thinking about, in that this is probably there's a group of musicians involved, there's a producer involved, there's an engineer involved, there's a studio for hire maintaining the equipment, there's a record company, there's probably different people that wrote and played all of the individual instruments, and we're still, I assume, maybe you and I and maybe some people on the panel aren't, of an age where we're emulating that whole group a bit in the back of our minds. I mean, that's the air we were hatched as practitioners in, as producers, songwriters, the whole chain, solo artists. I think there might be at last, and this doesn't make it less complicated or less difficult for them, but I think that people are getting away from that entire corporate rock team of people when they compose their bedroom stuff. And I think what people were criticizing laptop artists a little bit, maybe 5-10 years ago for this when it first started, but they're getting away from that shackles of how else are we going to make rock music? It's to, you know, simulate that entire group of professionals that I just outlined. And I don't know what it's like to not have that, but I suspect there is some power in rejecting it as a younger producer. And if anybody does that, please tell me right now, because I'm genuinely curious what the experience is like to either reject or just not, you know, have come up in a world where that was the dominant paradigm of rock bands and corporate rock.
Okay, that's a really challenging thought, because at my core, and I know a lot of people think this way, we're always saying, oh, I have to wear the drummer hat, I have to wear the producer hat, I have to wear the da-da-da-da-da-da. What if there's no hats? Like, what if there is no spoon? What if there's no box to think outside of? That's rewiring my brain.
I'm not a producer, I'm a composer.
Yeah. Or just I am.
Yeah.
Because all of these things, and I am is the name of God, by the way. All of these things don't exist. There is just me. I am Ivan. Yeah. Kerry, you're so quiet today. It's making me worried.
No, it's because I've been on mute and stuff because James is downstairs jamming on guitar, so I was trying to be quiet, not interfere.
Rock and roll. Well,
yeah, he's in a guitar mode today.
Okay, your interference is always welcome. So with anybody else who wants to interfere, please.
Oh, thank you. It's just I've been at a lull because when I thought I was done with this piece that was like my ultimate piece, then it's got switched like 2 or 3 times within the past couple of weeks, and now I think we're going to do where we set the sound levels on each, I guess, scene you would call it, and get them right. And Jim, he's going to help me with that. Yeah. And then I've had doggies running around barking too this morning.
Barking
My
dogs
baby.
is good.
Oh yeah, but yeah. But I don't write lyrics either. I'm like, I don't know. I always go back to where this book I read by Timothy Leary, how the brain is actually a computer. And that's why I go with the 11011, because it's the binary representation for the numerical value word off. And I'm off. I'm not on if you go back to the ones and zeros. And I just like, my brain, I feel like when I try to communicate, I'm more in the subconscious than the conscious, which is more abstract. And so it's hard for me to say my thoughts, and coming from being an oil painter for so long and go back to music, it's like I do more of a, not visual, but a sound and not lyrics or words, if that makes sense. I'm kind of babbling now.
I'm envious of you.
Here. Why?
Artists who have this concept of this freedom of where it's not in the intellectual, it's in the subconscious. Like that to me
I believe everything is within the subconscious. I mean, I went for years studying how to bring the conscious level or the subconscious mind to the conscious mind level and things like that. And yeah.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I will just say that I think if I died tomorrow, I would be really happy with so much of my life, but I did not go into that.
Really?
No, not enough. I have a lot of trouble making contact with that, and I feel that my art is only halfway there. It's only, and that's my experimentation with Ice Planet 9000 is trying to, you know, get more Lynch, get more transcendental about things, but I can't meditate.
To get that concept out.
Sorry?
To get that concept.
Yeah,
out
but
in there.
also it's not about the tree, it's about the roots, but it's not about the roots, it's about the earth. You know? Yeah. It's not about the earth, it's about the universe. It's not about the universe, it's about everything. Right. And that's, you know, I've always heard music that's like ambient music, and I just go,
See, I'm
man.
trying to stay away from that. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't do that certain thing. It doesn't flip the switch that releases the certain chemicals in my brain to like, oh, excite me. So I'm trying to keep away from that style, and it's just an interesting balance that I have to work on.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Raz has his hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Carrie, could you just talk more, I like hearing it, about the distinction you're making between conscious and subconscious as applies to creative output?
I look at it as, like, if you look at abstract art, an abstract painting, okay, that picture of all these blotches and everything, you know, swirls or whatever the artist has out there on the canvas, and it's supposed to represent, let's just say, an elephant, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I see the elephant. So it's more, if you're bringing the subconscious to the conscious level, well, it's not going to be right there in, you know, English or into where you can express in words. It's going to be more, you know, abstract, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Well, I think I agree in that language tends to be a more conscious.
And it limits.
Yeah, it's a place of existing, which is, as somebody, I think you just said you don't write lyrics, makes total sense that there's power in keeping the language centers of the brain out of the thing and going with other areas of your thought and feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with Carl. That's an awesome thing to do.
It's just how I've always been. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you are blessed.
Oh.
Because, like, you know, your ability to tap into new thought, new ideas, or the word new doesn't matter. Thought and ideas. And, you know, that's why I love Lynch, and I love There Is No Box. And this ties so perfectly back to the whole thing about, you know, choruses and everything. It's just stop thinking.
I gotta say, I'm pretty sure it's never dawned on me to stop the, you know, second tier cognition about what I'm doing while working on music. I mean, you get lost in the production flow, of course. I mean, that's one of the goals is to get into the flow state. But as a practice to, you know, eliminate the sort of self-criticism and editorial language side of things and get into something else, like, I don't even know what that is.
Oh, I try to shut down I call it the conscious mind. So I don't have words or anything going through my head. I just let it, okay, what is that? How does it feel, that sound? What does that feel like? And I just go with it and push it through.
Fascinating.
And then I call into Jim. Okay, help me when I'm done with something. Like, okay, let's make it sound right. You know, I guess you'd call it mastering it, getting the sound levels and everything down right, because he's really good at that.
That is awesome.
Oh, thank you. That's just how I work.
Oh, I'm glad you shared that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for letting me share that. It's hard to try to explain it to people, so I just keep my mouth shut and like, okay, go on.
All right.
I think there's a certain power in being able to talk about your one's own process. Yeah, so never feel bad.
Thank you, Ivan.
You know, just listen to Nick Cave talk about his process. He's amazing at describing what's going on. It's always super freaking cool.
I'll have to look that one up. Okay, because I love Nick Cave. Yeah.
And he did that speaking tour just before pandemic, and it was mostly a good chunk of it was him talking specifically about his process.
Okay. I'll have to YouTube that. Thank you.
That sounds amazing. God, yeah, that's amazing. Does anybody else want to bring anything else up or stuff?
Does anybody want to hear about Coldwaves?
Yeah, I want to hear about Coldwaves.
Yeah.
That was the That's the best weekend I've had this year. No ifs, ands, or buts. It was amazing. On Friday night, Kite played, and like their set got done, and the only thing you heard for the rest of the night was people talking about how amazing they were, because they were really good, really good. And then on Saturday night, the Revco played, or like I think they're playing in LA, and then that's it, or this was the last time. And it was Revco using like ancient Revco equipment, so there were some technical difficulties because old stuff acts old. They're old, the equipment's old, the venue's old.
What were they using?
Oh, it was all this. Like, so I didn't get a good look. And that was on Saturday night, and like on Thursday night, I may have had a few drinks, and that may have been kind of painful on Friday morning, which caused me on Friday to not really have any drinks. And then on Saturday, I was like, this is really working for me. I'm gonna have like one. So I had like one, but it also turned out that like my blood sugar was 40, like all day that day, and I didn't notice because I felt normal. 40 is like less than half of what it should be. And then I checked my blood sugar at one point, and then all of the symptoms hit all at once because my brain was like, "Oh, your blood sugar's low." And that was during Revco. So, hey, but what was it? Attack Ships on Fire. Oh yes, it was amazing. It was so amazing. And Coldwaves is a great place if you just want to meet like a ton of really cool people, like nice cool people, like just freaking cool people. Yeah, Coldwaves. It apparently just attracts awesome people, and that makes it more awesome. So I got to spend a surprising amount of time like talking to people between sets. And then there was the after party at Smart Bar like every night, and that resulted in staying up until like 4:30 in the morning for like 4 nights in a row.
Awesome.
I'm at an age now that you feel that for several days afterwards. I might still be feeling it.
Good.
And then Front 242 on Sunday night. Damn. It occurred to me during their show that one of the reasons that they got so popular is because Front 242 leaves you with this feeling that they're in on a secret, and they're letting you in on it too. Like they really do a good job of like conveying this feeling to the audience that as a result of having listened to them, you're now part of the like special select that like they're really good at it. Don't have good words to describe it. Nitzareb put on a good show. I always have a difficult time between telling the difference between when it's Nitzareb live and when it's Memorex, because they're 100% backing tracks.
I just got a really cool question. Oh, Ivan, did you want to keep going?
I'm good.
At the sunset of so many amazing bands, the sun now rises on so many new bands. And Joey in Facebook asked the question, I have a question for you all. Any advice for new artists when it comes to mixing and mastering as well as working with multiple synths in recordings?
Yes. All.
That is a brilliant question, and I think we're sort of laughing at that because we're still doing this a while and we're still figuring it out. And I guess that's one of the really fun things about it, as well, as that, you know, your process for doing this, you're going to leave a whole bunch of songs in your wake as you're trying to figure it out. I'm going to throw the floor open if you guys want to, because I sure know I do. Resi, go.
Yeah, I think this comes up in a lot of different forms, and the answer is, yeah, listen to this entire series forever, and we'll keep talking about that forever, the end. But the other answer, Carl, you just touched on, is that the process of continually doing it and really listening and making critical decisions, like it's intrinsic to growth, to answering your own question. In other words, like, you've got to put down the tracks, you've got to inspect the things that you have considered finished a few months later, a few weeks later, and some of the answer is time. You know, your ear changes and your influences change, and your immediate surroundings, you know, make a big difference to how you hear the things that you did last week, last month, last year. But it's not just time since the first thing you did. It's also the time you spent on each individual thing while you did it. Like, if you spent 5-10 minutes on pulling some loops in from the file browser and listen to that again a year later, you'll hear some things. But if you spent 50 hours on taking all those loops apart and figuring out what made them terrific, and balancing other things with them, and maybe reconstructing some of those loops with other tools, maybe making a few different versions of that, and finishing a 3-minute or 5-minute piece that you intended to start out with, that 50 hours goes a longer way than the 5 minutes did, when you look back on it and take it apart. So I'm not encouraging necessarily to obsessively spend time on one piece, but really paying attention and really putting in the time and really reassessing every once in a while consciously is like my general answer to that, as far as growth, without throwing in specifics about, pick this synth, pick this tutorial, pick this mix instructional video. Watch them all. It's great. There's some incredible free information to listen and watch about what tools people use and what their habits are, but it's got to go back to taking stock of what you did and putting the time in on what you did, so that when you take stock of it, it's something to really look at and learn from.
Thank you, sir. Mark, hit me.
I would say, if you haven't already, invest in a good DAC or audio interface. That was something that I didn't do early on.
A good what?
Audio interface.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're going to be recording multiple instruments, because I tried to make do with a kind of pretty basic one for a while, and I got a lot of static, and it was kind of just a huge pain. And then if you want multi-instruments and you only have like 1 or 2 inputs, then you're going to need some kind of way to mux the inputs, and then it just becomes a mess. Invest in a nice audio interface early on. That's what I would say. Awesome.
Can I actually go in there? And can I then throw it to you, Resi? If that's okay? Don't buy Behringer. Don't do it. Because, and I'm specifically talking about their audio interfaces. Get a Forsyth, for example, and get a good one. Like, if you're serious about this, because you're going to end up getting a good one anyway. Oh boy, here comes a rant. Just get a good one. And my advice is, because the secondhand market is so good, you're only going to be, if you buy something and you don't want it, you're only going to lose 20% of the value, but you're going to get to use it in that time. And that's better. That's cheaper than hiring it. My advice, third is don't buy crap gear. The first piece of advice is, I read this brilliant interview with the guy that mixed Thriller. The biggest selling album of all time, I think. Thriller. And he said, he listed these things, and the last thing is, don't listen to anyone else's advice. The thing that's going to sell your music is your opinions. because that's what you're selling, is your opinion and your taste. Like, should I go to E here, or should I go to D, or should I go to E flat? That's your choice. And there are other people who are going to share your choice out there in the world. They're your audience. Don't be not you, because you're going to be fakely interfacing with these other people. Be you. Focus on writing songs and learning about how to write songs. And that can be as simple or as complicated as you like. Learn to play scales. Learn really basic musicality, because you are communicating in the language of music. So therefore, learn the basics of the language of music. It does help. You don't have to do musicianship or really hardcore theory, but understanding that when I'm playing the chord G, G, B, and D sit over them really well. If I hit an E on that, it kind of adds this new emotion. If I hit a C on that, it adds a new emotion. A lot like the C note on those things. Learn about these things, and those emotions might not be what you're interested in. Music is, it's mathematics. Like the relationship between notes is twelfths. It is mathematics, and things slot together because of maths. And the funny thing is that this mathematical calculus thing has an emotional response. And if you learn a bit about music, you will learn why going from A to B flat has a certain emotional response. Or going from A to E flat has an emotional response. We like that emotional response. Other people don't. While you are learning about music and you are building your music, start building up your synthesizers and start playing with your production. Because bands that focus on production usually don't really, most of them run into a wall where you have to figure out about musicality. In our genre, it's also the other way around. You have to know about, I think learning about production is extremely important as well. And remember that your style in musicality and your composition and your lyrics is probably about as important as your style in production. Because bands that constantly go to other producers, that producer is going to come in and drastically change their sound. You don't want that. You want to establish a sound, because that sound, that opinion, that thought is what is your brand in your market. Don't buy crap gear. If you end up buying outboard gear like reverbs, get a good reverb. And this is a trap that I fall into and a lot of people fall into, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, is that don't buy crap gear, because you're going to stop using that crap gear very shortly, and you're going to throw shit away very quickly, and you're going to not really use it. Get good gear. If you want to get some good synthesizer worth $2,000, but you settle for the version that's worth $300, you're not going to get a lot of use out of that $300 ones. You'll end up selling it and getting the $200 one anyway. $2,000 one anyway. Sure, save up for it and all that jazz, but don't skimp. And make the move when you are in a financial position and blah blah blah. And there's nothing wrong with using VSTs or outboard. Some people like VSTs, some people like outboard. It's about your process. That's what's important. As far as mastering goes, get a professional to do it. And if you can't afford a professional, there are isotopes and things like that you can get. Mastering, I don't even touch mastering because I'm crap at it. I get a pro. I'm okay at mixing because I've done it for so long. If you wanted to read up and do a short course and like an internet fucking YouTube course, mixing. I think mixing's good because a kick drum sounds like a kick drum for reasons, a snare drum sounds like a snare drum and a voice sounds like a voice. If you start fucking with the EQ of these things for experimentational reasons, you're going to lose the power of those sounds. The power of those sounds lay within the frequencies. You need to learn about those frequencies. It's all about manipulating frequencies, isn't it? So experiment and fuck around. Set aside time, fuck around. Set aside one entire night a week for you to fuck around. No Netflix, no YouTube, no social media, no bullshit on that night. You focus on your goddamn music. One night a week. Rezzy, save me.
You changed my mind a little bit about my dedication to listening to your own stuff and being critical with the addition of watch those tutorials. And I sort of brushed past that as just another thing. But yeah, if you're going to take your stuff in to get mixed, work with the mix engineer. Like, learn, be there for the process. Don't just, kick back, but get up and ask questions and hopefully not annoy them. But there's a lot of growth to be had there, and spending time with the fundamentals, not getting technologically bogged down past where you want to go. But Carl, that is super important, whether it's how music works or how engineering works. Those are both well spelled out areas for rock genre and Western, 12-tone stuff. But one distinction I did want to throw on it is the music is organically existent, those dividing into 12ths and stuff, and like we're discovering the properties, I think, and we're using the math to describe them. So I would just want to argue that music is organic. The language you use to describe what's going on is often mathematical. And it's a subtle distinction, but I think it's an important one, because I, as a person who was very put off by the people when I was a kid saying, oh, music is math, you need your math courses. Maybe, but you can go really far with understanding the physics properties that we're talking about, where harmonic consonance and dissonance evolve from, and that's sort of the basis of everything we're talking about. So, small distinction. And having the language is what you can learn from those courses. That's important. I'm totally on board with that. And then one other, Mark's right on about really, truly crap gear getting in the way of, even progressing beyond sitting down and doing anything, because it's going to ruin your day. But I've found it hard to find gear that is really below the threshold of utility. Like, there's a lot of cheap stuff that works really well. And you'll know it the minute you've spent $100 too little on your audio interface. The minute that becomes apparent, that's, a good time to start researching and finding out what you can gain from another one. Jumping into it, spending a lot on gear may be prohibitive as much as getting some bad gear, because you might put off buying the synth or interface that you need. And furthermore, if you get in at a low threshold with a piece of what might be considered kind of crappy gear, you may keep it around anyway just for those properties that it has, with that grittiness or that intermittentness or that weird tone that it has. It's a possibility, and it becomes part of your identity and arsenal of sounds to pull from. I think treating yourself to a nice audio interface is amazing. But I have another argument here, in that, man, if you're politically or philosophically against how Behringer operates, go definitely fight it out with Uli. They've done some stuff that I could see disagreeing with. But I've got a 18-channel rack mixer from Behringer right now that I use as my main thing, and I've got a bunch of Focusrite gear, and I've got a bunch of whatever. It works. It's ridiculously inexpensive. And if you're making the decision about your politics versus getting your music done, that's a decision only you can make. But man, it's one of my most problem-free pieces of gear that I have, is some of the Behringer stuff. And okay, I'm done defending them. They're reprehensible in some other ways. I think that's it.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, just give me a sec. As far as the audio interfaces on Behringer go, I have had nothing but bad luck with them.
Understood.
On some of the stuff with Macintosh, they work. On my PC, it's a great idea, but using it with a PC, it filled it with clicks. And I installed and reinstalled and fucked around endlessly. I tried to get support. It was 0 point at all, and I spoke to a whole bunch of other people who were having the same problem, and no one could fucking, X, Y, and Z. So as far as like...
Totally.
Yeah.
I just want to jump on that. Like, the difference between Behringer and Focusrite there, I was on with one guy from Focusrite chatting for an hour about a minor issue, and he was knowledgeable and empowered and capable and there at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Big difference there.
Yeah. And that's like the thing about, firstly, your audio interface is, it's like the heart of a digital system, that if it's shit, everything you're recording is shit. If it's poppy, clicky, and fuzzy, everything you record will be shit. And you're going to be crawling around on your knees trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with the thing. As far as spending $2,000 on a synthesizer that you want, my point is that if you go, I really want that synthesizer X, because it does these things. Meanwhile, synthesizer X from another brand also claims to do those things, but I really want synthesizer X from that brand. Go with the one you want, because your heart is set on it. Yep, sure, absolutely. There are some cheap bits of shit around that are great fun and they're good, but that's not what I'm talking about. But I will also say there is a real concern, I think danger with electronic music, that you start acquiring a whole bunch of crap. And like I said, the secondhand market's really good and you can get rid of that crap, but you have to fuck around to get rid of that crap. I only say this because it's something I'm dealing with at the moment. Is I'm currently going through a thing where I want outboard gear, and the more I throw myself into it, the more I want a bullshit lexicon or an Eventide. That's an Eventide. That's what I want. I don't want a da-da-da-da-da. So here I am filling up my rack with da-da-da-da-da crap, and it sounds like crap. Whereas I want this huge, luscious reverb. If I'm at a point with my modular synthesis that if I want an absolutely fucking amazing filter, I'm going to spend a lot of money on it. Like, a lot of money. Because nothing else is going, unless it's like, Dopefer do some really fucking amazing cheap filters, and they're bloody awesome. But my point is that, if you want to sound like an ARP 2500, there are certain brands that are cloning ARP 2500s and they don't sound like ARP 2500s. They sound like $100 filters. The difference between a $100 filter and an $800 filter, you can't hear it, your neighbors can hear it. That's the fucking difference. And when you go into a club and blast the holy shit out of that, you will feel your stomach drop. Anyway, butter. And as far as musicality goes, learn the difference between a major chord and a minor chord. And when you play a whole bunch of minor chords together, it becomes very emotionally intense. If it's a whole bunch of major chords together, it becomes very powerful. But when you start mixing it, you start getting into this really interesting place of emotion and da-da-da-da-da. So play and fuck around. I've talked enough. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you said, Rezi. Here's Ivan. Ka-ching.
Boom. Okay, I got thoughts on cheap hardware. This bad boy was my first desktop keyboard controller, and it was dirt cheap. I'm still using it because it fits, and the keys aren't that bad. It behaves itself. It's it's not great, but it works. So there's that. Also, wait. $80 at a garage sale, and this is a fun bass to play. So I'm not gonna complain.
I'm gonna lose this fight, aren't I?
I just love the show until hour.
And the last piece of cheap gear. This is going to be the one. This will be the one. Because I like using this thing. It's not like a real Pro One. I know what those sound like. It's close enough, and it's as close as I'm going to ever get, because I think like every time I turn around, those things are another $1,000. But also, musicality, like learning the tech is actually the easy part, especially since so many of us have a tech background. Looking at you, Mark. So that makes the tech easy. Like music theory, though, is 100% worth every moment you put into learning it, because like as it's like trying to write poetry without actually knowing the language. Yeah, you can go look words up in the dictionary and throw something together. Probably gonna sound like crap, but once you understand, like as you get better at music theory, your compositions get better, because now you know the difference between a major and minor chord, and now you can play, you can have interplay between those two, and as soon as you start to blow your mind and learn modes, it just gets better. And also it is math. I hate to break it. It's math. But by math, what they mean mostly it's geometry. That's why it's a circle. That's why it's a circle of fifths. Because when you start throwing the right shaped triangles in there, magic happens.
Thank you. That's great. Resi, go. Unless you finished, Ivan. Okay.
When I say the math is useful for describing it, and we're talking about an organic property, I think it's mincing words a little bit, and I apologize for being poetic, but just we do. Geometry is what we're talking about with ratios and stuff, and building on Western harmony, and the melody that works with it is. I just think it's a neat property of the physical world that we're discovering how well it can work and how it can make us happy and sad. And those properties do need to be described by math. I mean, how else are you going to talk about it? But dividing things in half and thirds and stuff, it's, I think we're talking the same language. I'm just being a hippie about it. And Carl, I don't think you've at all lost the argument, but I do think it's a nice calibration of the things that you rely on more. You should probably get the version that works reliably. Well,
reliably, especially if it's something you rely on. It needs to be one of two things. It either needs to be hyper reliable, or it needs to be so cheap that you throw it over your shoulder and replace it.
Exactly.
It carries 4 extra when you're on the road.
Yeah, totally. You know what?
It's like I'm not bringing a like vintage Juno 106 on the road. I'm gonna have to bring an army of repair guys and a truckload of parts.
Don't fall into gear acquisition syndrome.
Too late.
I think don't, because it's you have to really work at keeping that under wraps, and you have to really work at focus on making music.
Well, that's been the good news. I don't have room now. I don't have any place to put anything, and so I stopped buying stuff because I'm full, and it has really caused me to focus on making the music instead, because it turns out that's more fun.
Yeah. Carrie, finally, interrupt me.
Well, speaking about the gear accusation or acquiring the gear, Jim always tells me, he's like, you got to be careful or you're going to have gas. Gear, yes. What is it? Gear accessory syndrome.
Yeah,
is what he
acquisition
says
syndrome.
that I sometimes get, and he's like, don't get gas.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought that was a funny thing he always tells me.
Well, it's very, very true, because if your song is stuck, you're working on a song and things are stuck, the first thing you think is, oh, if I only had that thing. Yeah. Oh, if I only had a better effect. Yeah, maybe I'll go and buy some stuff because I'm...
get creative with what you have.
Yeah.
and think how you can, and it helps the mind. It like excites your mind to think, okay, what can I do with what I have and make it sound like this? And it gets the creativity flowing even more so within you.
Yeah.
But that's what I have to say.
Totally agreed.
Again, work in the tech industry, and one thing that I've noticed, especially when I was working out west, was companies that need to get problems actually solved and taken care of tend to hire engineers from the upper Midwest. So people who grew up with dads that were electricians or machinists or carpenters or, making stuff with hands kinds of folks, and usually not like hyper well paid. And so we grew up with, toys that were conduit boxes and conduit and, learning to run a lathe when we're, at an age where you shouldn't be near that thing. Learning to use, hand tools at a completely age appropriate time, because you can start really young with those. But the result is like we spent so much of our youth playing with like making shit up with what was available, and what was available was really freaking basic. When we get out to the coast where everybody that we're up against, they didn't have that problem. So like they're really good at thinking inside the box, whereas we go and build a box.
Or disassemble the box and turn it into a go-kart.
Yes. Go find some wheels.
Yeah. It's interesting how that also it moves to music as well. That ability to construct and deconstruct and pull it apart and figure out why it's working. That's a really core. In fact, that would be a really good skill to have as well, is the ability to be able to pull music apart and go, how many bars does this go for? What chords are going on in this song? In fact, if you're ever in a rut and you don't know what to do, get a song, pull it apart, figure the chords out, and before you've even finished that, you'll be off. You'll be off making your own song, inspired by it. I think I might call this, unless anybody else wants to bring up anything else of fantasticness, because today's been really excellent, and I'm very, very grateful. Oh, we're going to raid. We're going to raid to MTV TV. I think we're now raiding. Yay for the raid to MTV TV. And we're going to hang around here as usual, and we're going to have a chat. You guys rock. Thank you so much for joining us, and you're amazing, and you rock. We'll see you next week. This time next week. Rock. Bye.